The night is dark and full of terrors.
What if Joffrey killed Sansa before Tyrion intervened? Let's explore the depths of it in the video.
If you want Robb Stark to hear us, we're going to have to speak louder!
The doors suddenly fly open, but it's too late as a sword flashes, hacking Sansa across the neck. The girl can only let out a quick cry before slumping to the ground, blood pouring from the wound in her neck. Tyrion hurries to her side and has one of his men check in on her. Bronn tries to staunch the bleeding, but it's too late. In seconds, the girl's body goes still, and the whole court falls silent. All eyes turn to Joffrey, frightened and stunned. No one dares to speak. None except the king, who nods his head and points toward the corpse.
Yes, there. Let that serve as an example to all those who defy the crown.
Tyrion glances around and sees a different story. Shaking his head, he orders that all of them return to their chambers and has his clansmen escort them away. Lastly, he has someone take Sansa's body away. Once the last courtiers are alone, Tyrion slaps Joffrey across the face. Sir Mirren reaches for his sword, but Bronn steps between them, his own hand on his blade as he dares the knight to come closer.
Have you lost your mind? She was our prisoner, your future bride. What possessed you to do something so stupid?
The Starks need to be punished. Her brother devastated our army in Ox Cross.
So you take your anger out on a child who wasn't even there? What will the realm think? What will Robb Stark think?
He'll think twice before striking again, and—
No, you idiot. You just cut the ropes binding one of his arms behind his back. He'll see you as a liar and a murderer, because you are. The whole realm will question why they serve a king as foolish as you. And they will remember this action the next time Lannister prisoners fall into their hands.
But
nothing. Dog, see to it that the king is brought back to his chambers, and make sure he's kept away from anyone he can torment. I will have to do what I can to salvage this situation.
Tyrion tries to cover up the story as best he can. Even Cersei realizes how dangerous this situation is, and they spend the day approaching all members of the court, trying to calm them. They use a combination of threats, flattery, and pleas to convince them to remain silent on this problem, to at least slow the spread of information. However, given how public the incident is, there is no way that this can truly be covered up. Word soon reaches the other great houses. Unsurprisingly, the Starks are furious when they hear this. Sansa was the only real bargaining chip the Lannisters had, and they wrote letters demanding an explanation as to what happened. Seeing no point in denying it, Tyrion instead tries to soothe the blow as much as possible. They say that she was indeed beaten by Joffrey, but died from wounds suffered in the ensuing King's Landing riots. He also makes sure the courtiers repeat this story. He also offers her remains as a token of respect to them. However, none of this actually appeases the Starks, who have only experienced Lannister treachery again and again. This time, they have nothing left to lose, and once they receive confirmation that Sansa is dead by Sir Cleos Frey, they decide to retaliate. Lord Karstark is at last given leave for his vengeance. Though hurried letters are sent offering gold, multiple northern prisoners, and even some territory back, they fall on deaf ears. Lord Rickard rides back to Riverrun, where he makes his way over to the dungeons. He is accompanied by a group of trusted men as they make their way inside and close the door behind them. Jaime looks up at them, smirking faintly as he expects it to be Robb, but his amusement soon dies as he sees Lord Rickard, a drawn sword in his hands. The knight can barely open his mouth before the sword descends and cuts his head from his shoulders. Later, Sir Jaime's head is sent to Lord Tywin in Harrenhal. When the head arrives in a carved cedar box, the whole hall goes silent as the Lord of the Westerlands watch Tywin, who stares at the box. His lip begins to twitch, and a vein in his neck begins to bulge. Then he slams the lid shut and curses Robb Stark, before cursing his children for being such fools. He initially plans on heading back to the Westerlands in order to reinforce it from the recent Stark attack, but now orders his men to prepare to ride to King's Landing.
But my lord, what of our lands to the west? Reports say that the Northmen just ravaged our army at Oxcross. Without them, our castles are vulnerable. Casterly Rock and all its mines are vulnerable. Fools. Robb Stark has 6,000 men at best. All his victories were won through speed or daring. He does not have the numbers or the equipment for a long siege. Besides, we are clearly more needed in the capital. I thought Tyrion might be enough to keep my foolish grandson in line, but clearly I was wrong. This matter requires my personal attention.
He leaves a small garrison, but later that night he orders his men to march out, leaving the Riverlands campaign entirely. This is fortuitous, as they receive word that Stannis has also managed to gain control of Renly's army after his brother was mysteriously murdered. This means he can focus his full attention on fighting the war against the Lannisters. The Baratheon soon sets sail with his army, leaving Storm's End with a strong garrison to march against them, while trying to win over the Tyrells to his cause. Like the rest of the contingent, they soon receive word of Sansa's murder, and when Loras and Randyll Tarly return from the Reach, they are recalled to Highgarden immediately to discuss this matter.
It appears that the Kingslayer is dead too. Lord Robb killed him in retaliation against his sister's death. That, or it is another blonde man's head sent to Lord Tywin. The old lion now marches back to King's Landing with all haste.
It's what I would do as well. The entire situation has gone south for him. His best bet would be to try and salvage what he can by heading back.
Speaking of which, a raven has arrived from King's Landing, offering a marriage pact between my daughter and King Joffrey.
Indeed. After we secured Bitterbridge, Lord Baelish arrived with a similar proposal. He also came with gold, gifts, and a letter from the Acting Hand. It promises that what happened to Sansa was simply a moment of anger from the king, and that he, Queen Cersei, and Lord Tywin will work tirelessly to ensure that something like this will never happen again.
It will never happen because I will not allow my granddaughter to be married to that monster. If someone must be taught not to murder over every temper tantrum, then that person is not fit to wed a milkmaid, much less a lady of Highgarden.
You may have my agreement there, Mother. I have no intention of allowing Marjorie anywhere near that monster. Still, it raises the question as to who we should support. We have already gotten involved in this war, and the Lannisters are likely to forget that unless we offer them something.
Do not forget Stannis. He is a hard man, and will not forgive us for not joining. No doubt he already resents us for crowning his brother to begin with.
Then that leaves Robb Stark, unless you wish to count Balon Greyjoy as a contender.
I'd rather crown an actual Kraken than him.
Robb Stark will be difficult. He has no interest in the Iron Throne, and is not going to be concerned about Southern politics after what happened to his father. He only cares for independence. So unless you are going to grant him a chance to rule independently, you'd best not hold your breath.
The conversation proves more difficult than expected. Their first suggestion would be Edric Storm, Robert's bastard in Storm's End. He is officially recognized as the son of two noble families. Plus, he is well liked. Even Renly was fond of him. Loras and Randyll both find his rule acceptable. The only problem is that he remains under Stannis' control. Without him, the Reachmen have no one to crown. This conversation drags into the night, without much progress being made, until they decide to retire for the night. Olenna snaps her fingers, and two guards arrive to guide her back to her chambers. As she arrives, her eyes narrow on her bed. There she finds a letter placed neatly on her pillow. When she picks it up, she finds it bears the sigil of the Spear in the Sun of House Martell. Opening the letter, the Queen of Thorns recognizes the writing of Prince Doran. It says that despite their house's bad blood, they had stood together in the past, most recently against Robert's rebellion. Now that war has come to their shores, he urges them to cooperate yet again. Doran also finds all the choices of kings distasteful, but promises he might have an idea for a new ruler instead. He suggests they back the Targaryens' return. Being amongst their staunchest supporters and providing their troops, it will leave them heroes in Daenerys Targaryen's eyes. This could lead to great influence and power for the next queen. Such a prospect is intriguing to them. Even Olenna admits it isn't a possibility she had fully considered. However, she quickly sees its merit. The only problem is that she is probably the queen in the weakest position, and there is no guarantee she will be able to do anything from where she is. They do at least agree to send a delegation to her. Meanwhile, Stannis manages to reach King's Landing before the Lannisters, thanks to his naval superiority, and begins blockading the city while preparing for an attack. Tyrion desperately tries to organize a defense. Without any word of reinforcements and his father still days away, he must fight this battle with what few forces he has. His plan initially goes well as he sends out his wildfire attack to destroy most of Stannis' fleet and temporarily block off the river. It is a bold move that costs him most of the navy, but it at least blocks off Stannis from crossing the river. At least temporarily. Some ships manage to deploy men, others begin to form a makeshift bridge, allowing more knights to cross. Tyrion fights desperately against this new threat, trying to hold them back. However, it is a losing battle, and without anyone to distract Stannis, he begins to grind down the defenders. With their morale already shaky and the Lannisters having an unpopular regime, it is easy enough to cause the defenders to break once Tyrion falls in battle. After that, everything falls like dominoes, and the city falls in days. Tywin arrives barely a day later and immediately orders his forces into an attack. Stannis is happy to give battle with both armies numbering some 15,000 men. The difference is that Stannis holds the city and his navy. While he wishes to simply hold the walls and let Tywin batter himself against them, he knows the city is already close to starvation, and the people will mutiny if there is another siege. Reluctantly, Stannis rides out and meets with Tywin in battle. This battle suits the Lannisters as it allows them to fight on equal footing. Tywin gathers his forces in a nearby village outside King's Landing. There, he rests and resupplies his men. However, as Stannis arrives, he draws his army up and sends out Sir Gregor to harass the advanced guard. The army under Sir Godfrey Faring buckles from this assault, though the big knight manages to hold his forces together and draws his men up into a shield wall. This allows Tywin to gather his own forces and begin to attack as Sir Adam gathers their remaining riders and strikes at Stannis' battered cavalry. Meanwhile, Stannis places his best knights on the right wing and tries to pummel Stannis' left, where Sir Kevan holds the line. He does not have as many horsemen, but his heavy pikes keep the enemy forces at bay for Tywin's center to advance along with his right. The king sees this maneuver and has his rear guard reposition itself. Rather than rally to the beleaguered left wing, he instead orders them to form a second line and has the left wing slowly give ground. Soon, they seem to break and scatter, but as they found a row of fresh men-at-arms waiting for them with their spears out, they jab and thrust, stopping the horsemen in their tracks and slowly driving them back. This victorious charge soon turns into a rout as the horsemen retreat, allowing Stannis to reform his left, where they begin to roll up Tywin's lines. Tywin is forced to send men to assist his center from collapsing, but this weakens his line and prevents him from supporting Kevan. Soon, he is overwhelmed and his forces are crushed. The Lord of Casterly Rock himself is captured and executed in King's Landing in full view of a cheering crowd. All of this leaves Stannis the undisputed ruler of the city. However, he does not have the other kingdoms backing, save the Stormlands. Yet when Robb Stark hears this, he begins to consider his options. The Lannisters are gone, and he has no reason to oppose Stannis' rule. More importantly, this war is exhausting him. He's already lost so much, and simply wants to return home to Winterfell. Diplomats are set, and terms are suggested. Stannis cannot accept the North having independence, but as they begin discussing possible solutions, he does recognize that the North was slighted by the Crown. He considers the idea of the North being made into a client kingdom. They will pay tribute at a lesser rate and must give the South favorable trading terms and accept the Iron Throne's foreign policy, but they shall be able to retain the title of King in the North. More importantly, they agree that trading caravans and merchants should have free reign to pass through the Riverlands, which remains under Robb's control. This allows Stannis' troops to march through the region and consolidate control over the Westerlands. Robb accepts these terms and returns to the north, glad to be done with southern politics. Meanwhile, Stannis is happy to turn his attention to his enemies. He executes most of the small council, along with Joffrey and Cersei, who are beheaded right in the throne room with Littlefinger. But so far, it is a huge step for Stannis, who now begins his rule in the capital. He sends letters to the Reach and Dornish, demanding that they pledge fealty to him. None of them actually answer, as they instead focus on sending their delegation to Qarth, where Daenerys is trying to recruit allies for her reconquest of the Iron Throne. But now, reports on her hatching dragons have reached even the Seven Kingdoms. But these dragons are small, and her power is middling at best. She has few allies, and only a handful of Dothraki to serve as her followers. As a result, her attempts to gain allies have largely been unsuccessful. Whenever the Mother of Dragons approaches a merchant prince or an archon for aid, the questions are always the same. How many swords does she have? Who will back her claim? How long will it be until her dragons grow large enough to ride? Each one is answered with uncertainty, as even she doesn't know. At best, she may point to Illyrio Mopantis, but his loyalty is questionable at best. Slowly, the suggestions of entering the House of the Undying to get their support and their magics grow more appealing. It was magic that hatched her dragons. Maybe magic will be what gives her the power to reconquer Westeros. Her Dothraki and Ser Jorah are less certain. They instead suggest other paths and warn that such magics may just as easily kill her. But just as she finalizes her plans to consort with these warlocks, a figure enters her chambers. It is Jorah, and he appears breathless but excited.
Your Grace, I received a report.
A ship from Old Town has arrived. They bear diplomats, and they claim to be a delegation from the Seven Kingdoms.
And who are they?
They say your father's old bannerman.
Daenerys looks at her knight, then beckons her guards to let them in. Soon the door is filled with a shuffling of green and orange clothing as representatives from the Dornish and the Reach arrive. At their head are Oberyn Martell, Loras, and Willis Tyrell.
Gentlemen, please take a seat. You have traveled a long way to see me.
When one hears of dragons returning to this world, no journey is too long. They are beautiful.
I hope my dragons aren't the only things you're interested in, Prince Oberyn.
You were not born yet, but my uncle stood watch over your mother throughout her pregnancy. He guided and kept her safe.
Your loyalty is admirable. Is that why you've come here? To pledge yourself to me?
That is correct. We have not forgotten our oaths to King Aerys, and today we have come to honor them by serving their last surviving child. Together, Sunspear and Highgarden can call upon a massive army, larger even than King Stannis. That should be sufficient to convince these people to support your claim.
Indeed. And yet, I am curious. You say that you recall your oaths in the past, but where were your houses when my father was blockaded on Dragonstone? Or when my brother and I spent our lives in exile? Or when my husband died? It seems to me your oaths are not as strong as you claim. You say that you are ready to serve, but I must ask, why were you so suddenly willing to offer your loyalty? And what is it that I must pay to secure it?
Did I not tell you she would be cunning, my friend? You do not survive 14 years in exile in Essos by being foolish. You are correct. Certain agreements must be reached.
I may be young, but I have seen how things work across the world. Loyalty is just another term for haggling. So what are the terms that you will provide?
Very well. Understandably, you have spent much time away from the Seven Kingdoms, and you might not know much about our culture, so we believe that having someone to guide you will be beneficial.
A husband, you mean?
Yes, between our two houses. Unfortunately, I am currently with my paramour, but there are quite a few boys close to your age for you to choose from.
You will allow me to choose my husband. How generous.
The discussion goes on about the finer points of this agreement. Talks of marriage and political appointments fill the room, as well as information regarding the situation in the Seven Kingdoms. Loras explains how Stannis rules the Iron Throne, but his voice drops with venom as he declares Stannis is worse than even Joffrey. He says that Stannis ordered the murder of his brother and paid Brienne of Tarth to do it. There is venom in his voice as he speaks, a complete disgust that takes even Daenerys off guard. She quickly understands that his anger is not simply at what he did, but who he did it to. When he looks at the young knight's eyes, she can sense the pain in them and finds herself nodding along. Having lost Drogo so recently, she finds herself sympathizing with him and promises him justice. Hearing this, Loras Tyrell drops to one knee and pleads for the opportunity to serve in her Queensguard and to lead the charge when they make their return. Daenerys nods her head and gladly names him as the second knight to her Queensguard. Surprisingly, Jorah does not make a fuss of this, as he remembers the rumors of Loras's preferences. Terms are agreed to as Daenerys declares she will marry Quentyn Martell, Prince Doran's eldest son. Meanwhile, Mace Tyrell shall serve as her new hand, and Marjorie her handmaiden. However, Daenerys' infertility comes up, and they come up with a solution. If she does manage to sire a child, they shall marry a Tyrell, and if not, she may adopt one as her heir. These are steep terms, but Daenerys cannot refuse them. Despite her bluster, she recognizes her position is not strong. The only reason she can even press her claim is because of their support. However, she expects that they will get results. Thankfully, this proves to be true, as once the local merchants hear of the Reach and Martell's support, they immediately change their tune. Suddenly, their vaults and ships are offered to her as well as their influence and allies. Soon, they provide her with enough money for sellswords, local militias, and tribesmen they have contact with, and a small fleet of ships to transport them to the Seven Kingdoms. But before that, their first phase is not military action, but economic. With so many merchant princes and the Reach so well connected, they begin a campaign to try to starve Stannis out. With the Reachmen and Dornishmen refusing to bend the knee, it is widely expected that the war will continue. However, at the moment, he is not in a position to challenge them. He is still focused on consolidating his position in the central continent, securing the Westerlands, and trying to convince the Vale to join him. He also must try to pacify religious unrest as zealots across the Seven Kingdoms arrive in the capital, as they condemn his beliefs and urge the people to rise and remove Stannis from power. In contrast, the Reachmen and Martells have armies that are virtually untouched. All he can do is slowly try to convince the individual houses in the Reach to rise up against their overlords, and pressure him into presenting himself to King's Landing. Lord Florent takes charge of this, convincing lesser houses to join him and promising the opportunity for wealth. But as that happens, a strange occurrence begins in the capital as the trade begins to dry up. Given the chaos and destruction left in the wake of the Battle of the Blackwater, it is expected that trade will weaken for a time. However, things do not get better, as even when the harbors are repaired, the wreckage is cleared, and serious efforts are made to encourage merchants to import food. The ships do not arrive. Instead, they arrive in southern ports like Plankytown, Old Town, and Harbor. This is all done by the merchants of Karth and their allies to begin starving out King's Landing. Mace also helps by cutting off the Rose Road and preventing more food from arriving from the Reach. At the same time, the Sparrows become more vocal and say that if Stannis cannot provide food for his people, he is not worthy of being king. All of this is an effort to starve Stannis into submission. But while the city begins to starve, Stannis begins to see the patterns, thanks to his new master of whispers, Melisandre. The Red Woman recognizes that this is no natural shift, but a direct effort by the king's enemies. She gazes into the flames and sees the secret meeting between the Tyrells Dornish and Daenerys. To combat this, Stannis uses his allies in the Reach to begin launching probing attacks and raiding fields to gather food. They will not recognize him, and that makes him his foes. While this helps to alleviate the food situation somewhat, his gaze remains fixed on the east, waiting for the arrival of the Targaryen Queen, and he intends to stop her. The skies above Shipbreaker Bay burn red with dawnfire as Daenerys Targaryen stands upon the prow of her flagship. The sea wind lashes her silver hair, the salt stings sharp upon her lips. Below her, the deck thrums with the footsteps of sailors and soldiers. The invasion has begun. Weeks of sanctions and embargoes have failed. Stannis' fleets still sail, and King's Landing endures despite the hunger gnawing at its people. The Reach and Dorne can choke his trade routes, but they cannot unseat him from the throne. Daenerys has grown tired of waiting. Her dragons are grown enough to fight, and her banners fly over 100 ships bound for Westeros. So now she decides to use them. From the cliffs of Cape Wraith, Stannis Baratheon watches. His jaw is set, the wind tugging at his cloak, and his ships lie hidden beneath the fog. When the Targaryen fleet presses into the narrow mouth of the bay, he strikes. War drums thunder. Dozens of Baratheon warships surge out of the mist, ramming the lead galley and launching firepots. The sea becomes chaos, wood splintering, screams swallowed by the roar of flames. Stannis' fleet cuts through Daenerys' vanguard like a spearhead, sinking ship after ship. For a moment, victory seems to be his. Then, the horns of the Red Wind fleet sound from behind. Bright sails unfurl across the horizon, green and gold with the grape cluster sigil. The volleys of flaming arrows rain down upon Stannis' rearguard. The trap is reversed. Surrounded, his captains struggle to form ranks as the Red Ones ram from behind. Above, the sky splits with a shriek. Drogon plunges through the smoke, wings vast as sails. His fire catches a Baratheon galley broadside, setting its pitch-soaked deck aflame. Men leap screaming into the sea as the dragon wheels away, Rhaegal and Viserion close behind. Panic ripples through Stannis' fleet. His flagship lurches, but the king keeps his head and calmly redirects his fleet into retreat. Stannis curses and signals the retreat. Better to live and fight again than to burn at sea. Daenerys watches the enemy ships scatter, her heart hammering in her chest. Victory is hers, but at a cost. The waves are littered with wreckage and corpses, many of them hers. By dusk, her surviving ships land along the Dornish marches. The dragons circle overhead as the armies disembark and meet with their allies. Dornish spearmen, reach knights, and sellswords. Their banners ripple in the wind, and for a moment the young queen allows herself to believe that Westeros is within her grasp. But Stannis Baratheon does not yield easily. Days later, his counterattacks begin. All across the marches, reports of clashes grow. His forces harry their camps, burn their supply lines, and strike at night with relentless precision. Fortresses that surrender easily are taken back within weeks. His knowledge of the Stormlands, every ridge and ravine, turns the ground itself into his ally. At the mountain keep of Bronze Gate, the desert tribes and hillmen attempt to scale the cliffs at dawn. They boast that they can move without being spotted and catch the garrison off guard. They climb silently, their curved blades glinting faintly in the pale light. Just as the first reach the battlements, a horn sounds, but not from the keep, which still sleeps. Instead, they come from a dried-up bank where the longbowmen were waiting, and arrows fire upon them. Men tumble from the rocks, their screams echoing into the canyons below. Stannis watches them from atop the castle, where his knights casually cut down anyone who reaches the top.
What idiots.
When Daenerys hears of the slaughter, she falls silent. That night, she stands outside her tent, watching the dragons wheel across the sky. Behind her, Sir Loras speaks bitterly, calling Stannis a savage, a usurper with no honor. But Arstan Whitebeard, one of the many men who resorted to her services, shakes his head.
You mistake him. Stannis Baratheon is not a savage. He is duty made flesh. Cold, relentless, and certain. He does not fight for glory or gold, but because he believes he must. That is the kind of foe who never breaks easily. In truth, there might be something to be learned from them.
Then perhaps I must learn to be just as unyielding.
The old squire speaks truly, Your Grace. Stannis. I've only seen him a few times, but there is a reason he is so feared. He has few friends and few allies, but those who follow him are devoted to him.
Then we must begin taking that devotion beneath his feet.
But despite her bold words, the situation is not as simple as she would like. As the sheen fades from her early victories and attrition takes hold, many begin to question why she has not won yet. Daenerys halts the offensives and begins reassembling her armies. The Dornish, Reachmen, and her Essos allies are pulling back and organized in preparation for a flash attack. With her dragons, people expect an easy victory, and yet no such success comes, and this leaves them questioning. Why has she not won against Stannis? When will her dragons grow large enough, and must they continue bearing the burden of this war effort until then? While the Queen tries to reassure them, she begins to feel the pressure of this campaign on her. Others demand results and expect miracles from her. She cannot provide such things, but her advisors step forward and try to help her however they can. Jorah has spent his life traveling among armies and serving in campaigns like this. He recognizes morale is everything and goes around the camp speaking to captains, lords, and chiefs. He listens to their concerns and brings them to Daenerys, ensuring that she can address them. Meanwhile, Margaery and Arstan both prove to be great allies as well. Though only a squire, there is something remarkably charismatic about Arstan, as he is able to win over many knights to his side. They say he moves with the energy of a man who has served in his fair share of battles, and that leaves men drawn to him and more inclined to follow his advice. While they work on the soldiers, Margaery works with the people and the merchants. She regularly meets with those affected by the war, working to ease their burdens as much as she can. These projects are done in the name of the Dragon Queen, ensuring that her name is lifted up alongside these efforts. The war in the Stormlands drags into another year. Rain falls without end, turning camps into swamps and roads into rivers of mud. Armies grow weary, their banners tattered and soaked. In her tent, Daenerys listens as her council argues. Oberyn Martell demands other assaults upon the Stormland fortresses, while Loras Tyrell insists that they must crush Stannis in open battle. Only Margaery Tyrell remains quiet, watching the others with her practiced, courtly smile. When Daenerys at last dismisses the men, the Queen stays behind.
You have a thought, Lady Margaery.
Westeros is not won by swords alone. My family learned long ago that hearts win wars more surely than blades. The Reach rules through love, not fear. Through marriages, feasts, and faith.
Love does not win battles.
No, but it makes others fight them for you.
Over the next months, a new strategy takes roots. Margaery's agents spread through the Reach and the Crownlands, whispering that Stannis' gods demand blood, that his priests burn children for light. Such claims are, of course, madness, but for a religion that is already distrusted, many people grow wearier of them, and others begin to preach openly in the streets. Among these are the Sparrows, who seem most eager to challenge the Lord of Light. At first, they just stage prayer rallies and marches on the streets, loudly proclaiming Stannis to be a heretic, and even calling for the Lady of Whispers' removal and execution. For a time, the king simply ignores these claims. However, as the situation escalates, he can stay silent no longer, and begins ordering his queen's men to maintain order in the street. But they aren't the only concern. The Tyrells also possess allies among the merchants and traders, and while the embargo didn't fully destroy Stannis, it at least weakens him, and they press the fact further. Merchants are bribed to exaggerate famine and hoard grain. The small folk, hungry and angry, rise again in the streets, rallying behind the Sparrows. At the same time, Daenerys' army begins to stage false defeats. In the rolling meadows of Rainwood, her sellswords fight mock battles against Stannis' patrols, letting them win. This is a great morale boost for Stannis, yet once their armies leave, scavengers descend to claim these weapons. The Sparrows seize the armies and begin their holy crusades against Stannis' followers. With these weapons comes new confidence as they arm themselves and begin to attack, forcing Stannis to divert his forces from the front lines to suppress rebellion in his own kingdom. Daenerys begins to see the truth of Marjorie's words. Hearts do not simply win wars, they unmake kings. Soon, Stannis can bear no more. The embargo has strangled the city, and his soldiers march on empty bellies. He must end this rebellion, and the best way to do that is with bread. The king gathers his remaining host, grim knights from Dragonstone, hardened Stormlanders, and men sworn by oath rather than gold. He means to strike south, to cut through the Dornish lines and reopen the Rose Road. The armies meet among the high hills overlooking Bitterbridge. The ground is slick with rain, the air heavy with thunder. Stannis takes the high ground first, fortifying a ridge and pounding Daenerys' advanced troops with arrows and fire. This forces them to settle on the lower slips, where they face the furious attack from the Baratheon forces. Their shield walls clash, as though they might be hungry, but the Baratheons remain as fierce as ever. Their axes and spears hammer the Reachmen, while arrows continue to rain down from the high ground, neutralizing the superior Reach numbers. Even the famed Dornish spearmen are forced to turtle against these attacks. Stannis presses the attack, and they may well be dislodged from the hill entirely. Below, the Targaryen banners waver. The Queen's men falter against his disciplined ranks. Mace's knights are driven back, despite his efforts to rally them. Meanwhile, Dornish spearmen crumble under the storm of arrows. Even the dragons keep their distance, grounded by wind and rain. Then, a horn sounds. One long, clear note that cuts through the battle. Upon the bluff to the east, a lone rider appears, silver-haired and shining in the dawnlight that breaks through the clouds, Arst and Whitebeard. But now he has shaved his beard and donned his old armor and appears to them as Barristan Selmy.
Stand, men of Westeros, for your queen, for your realm.
The soldiers freeze in disbelief. Then, one by one, they begin to cheer. Barristan rides down the slope, his banner snapping in the wind. Daenerys' forces rally to him, Reachmen, Dornish, and sellswords alike, surging back up the hill, braving the storm and clashing with the Baratheons up close. And then, behind the old knight, comes the dragons. They are about the size of a wolf, too small to ride, but enough to rain fire. With the Baratheon armies exposed and overextended, they unleash their flames upon their ranks as Daenerys appears from the camp, shouting orders to them. The storm breaks at last, sunlight glinting off wet blades as the counterattack slams into Stannis' flanks and fire rains above their heads. The disciplined line of the Baratheons waver, then buckles. By nightfall, the ridge is red with blood. The banners of the fiery heart lie trampled in the mud, their bearers slain or fled. Stannis stands, close to death, yet he continues to fight, ordering his men to stage a rearguard and keep his army in order. But then Sir Loras bursts through the carnage, his eyes blazing as they land on the king, and cuts him down with a single swing of his sword. When the battle ends, Daenerys stands upon the captured ridge beside Barristan Selmy. The old knight kneels before her, his armor dented and scarred.
Your Grace, forgive the deceit, yet I needed to be certain if you were truly the queen they spoke of.
Daenerys offers her hand in thanks for his efforts and helps him to his feet. She says if he is truly willing to serve, she has a task for him and places him in charge of the army as her new Lord Commander of the Queen's Guard. Meanwhile, she has another task to attend to while he deals with any holdouts. The road to King's Landing is lined with ash and ruin. Broken banners hang from burned-out trees, Stannis' fiery heart torn and blackened by flame. With Sir Barristan flushing out the remnants of Stannis' army, she rides with Marjorie, Loras, and Oberyn, and a few others. Her silver hair whips in the wind, her eyes fixed upon the distant city rising from the mist. The black water glimmers faintly beneath the gray dawn, and beyond it, the red keep gleams. On either side of her, dragons fly. Drogon leads, his wings casting vast shadows over the plain. Rhaegal and Viserion circle behind, their roars echoing like thunder.
It is a strange thing to see dragons over Westeros again. I never thought I would live to see it.
Let us hope these guards find it quite enthralling. Open the gates. Your queen has returned.
The towering bronze doors where the gold cloaks stand uncertain, spears trembling in their hands. When she halts before the walls, she whistles, and her dragons fly up to the wall. A few of those men gasp and scramble back in surprise, barely believing what they see. Then Daenerys raises her hand. Drogon lands beside her with a shuddering impact. the ground quaking beneath his claws.
Open your gates. You have fought for kings who burned your brothers and starved your children. The true queen of Westeros stands before you. The blood of the dragon returned to her home. Open your gates, and you will not be harmed.
For a heartbeat, silence. Only the wind and the slow creak of Drogon's breath. Then, one by one, the gold cloaks drop their spears. The gates of King's Landing groan and begin to open. She rides through the streets at the head of her army. The city that once burned beneath wildfire now trembles with awe. Small folk pour from the alleys, drowned by the roar of dragons and the glint of sunlight upon her armor. At the foot of the great sept of Baelor, the sparrows gather, barefoot, ragged, and fanatic, kneel before her path. The High Sparrow himself steps forward, eyes wide at the sight of the beasts that darken the sky. Daenerys dismounts. The crowd parts around her like waves around a ship's prow. Drogon lowers his head behind her, his golden eyes fixed upon the faithful.
Mother of Dragons, is this your doing? Have the Seven sent you?
The gods did not send me. I came for my people. I came because this city has suffered enough. We have helped each other in the past, indirectly. I have no desire to be your foe. Now I ask, will you stand in my way? Or shall we continue working for the betterment of the people?
Her words carry through the square. The sparrows tremble, torn between devotion and fear. The dragons stretch their wings, casting the sept in shadow. The High Sparrow bows his head. Around him, hundreds fall to their knees. Their prayers mingle with the low rumble of the dragon's breath. Praise and terror entwined. Daenerys lifts her head, feeling the warmth of Drogon's flank beneath her palm. The people chant her name. For the first time since crossing the narrow sea, she allows herself to smile. Above, the dragons roar, not in anger, but in triumph, their fire painting the sky gold and crimson. The bells of King's Landing ring again as Daenerys walks the steps of Baelor Sept, the city kneeling before her. She cannot tell whether they kneel out of love or fear, but she knows what kind of cheers she will make in the future. That's our theory. Westeros is a land filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey across the Seven Kingdoms and beyond, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.